This is Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich, and again, as always, with the one and only Ratanjit and Ray. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Always good to be here with you talking about interesting subjects. And today we have an expert that we have brought along with us. We are so delighted that he is joining us. We have a number of other guests that are also with us on the Zoom call. By the way, you can be Zooming with us. You can be listening on the radio at WINT.com anywhere around the world. But here with us on our Zoom call, all the way from California, is Dylan Desai. Dylan, thank you so much for being with us today as our special guest.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Good to have you. Now, Ratanjit, I'm not saying that he's one of the people that is especially notable for our topic today, because we don't want to let anyone think that that's why he's on the show, but he certainly is a very smart person. I know him, you know him very well, and we know that he has had great successes in his life due to his intelligence and other factors. But our topic today, I think, is one that a lot of people can relate to, and that we all know people, or maybe we know ourselves, and we know that we're educated, we know that we're experienced, we're trained, we've had good upbringings, we've had all the right pieces and parts to make us to be considered smart people, able to be competent, able to do the right things in our life. And maybe we make really smart business decisions, but we don't make very smart personal decisions. Or maybe we make good personal decisions, but in our business activities and our finances and our careers, we do really dumb things. And I always wonder about that. Why does it seem like the smartest people that we read about, that we hear about, or again, maybe even ourselves, do the dumbest things? It doesn't make sense on the surface, but there's got to be a reason.
Well, we know Dylan comes from the smartest area on earth, Silicon Valley,
Okay.
and he definitely knows some of the most smartest people in the whole universe. So, Dylan, give us your take. Why do you think the smart people? First of all, do you think the smart people do the dumbest things?
I do, absolutely. I think there are many examples, unfortunately, in not just the tech industry, but the community, that we live in. And unfortunately, I think it comes from a place of stress. So the very topic of the very theme of your radio show, I think, speaks to why very smart people decide to engage in dumb things or activities that are, against their best interest. So it's I think a place of stress, people under extreme pressure to do things that would ordinarily not be a decision that they would make. It probably comes from a place of emotional stress as well, somewhere where they feel, you see a lot of folks who are, what they call the rat race. So you have folks who are constantly competing against their peers, against their friends, even who they think are maybe doing better than them, and they want to try and catch up in some way. And so they take shortcuts. So there are a lot of examples of that, I think, unfortunately, in our area. And when I think of, those experiences, even mine, my own experiences, usually it comes down to making those decisions under extreme stress, under circumstances where you don't have all the information, but you're willing to take the risk.
Well, I think stress is, in your opinion, stress is one of the main cause. But why does stress come in us? Is it because we know inside that something is not going right, or we are so overpossessed of doing it right that we are conscious that we may not end up doing it right, so we end up doing wrong things?
I actually think it's both. I think I think it's a bit of both. I think the latter is more applicable in the examples that I'm thinking of.
Now, Ray, you said something in the beginning of the show that there are a lot of great companies, great CEOs who have made great decisions. But I kind of little bit disagree with it. The corporate world has marginalized humanity. If you look at, we are the greatest country on earth. We are the richest country on earth with 21 billion or trillion GDP, and yet 43% of our population is unable to meet their basic needs of food and living and all that. 43%.
Mm-hmm.
And so what has happened is this is all because of smart people doing dumb things. And they are getting credit for thinking that they are doing the smart thing. Because see, fundamentally, we do not come with the operating manual when we are born. We think our parents have created us. But parents, yes, we come through parents, but the natural universal wisdom has designed us. So has it designed everything else around us. So we do not really know how we are designed. We are told by our peers, our parents, our friends, our school, and our bosses that this is who you are, this is what you are supposed to do. And it's like if you are driving a car is designed to go from here to thousands of miles as long as you fuel it in going forward. It is also designed to reverse, because you have to get out of the parking or your garage, you can reverse the car. But if you decided to drive a car from here to even downtown in reverse, what is going to happen? You are going to have stiff neck, and you are going to kill the engine because you are going to be driving in first gear. So the whole thing is not designed to go long distance in reverse. So similarly, we don't really know how we are designed. So we have been going against our natural design. So that is where all our problems come from.
You mentioned 43% being unable to meet their basic needs, and yet we're the richest country in the world, and those kind of things. So that gets into the world of political decisions too. So we have a lot of, and I probably could have started with that political segment because they're an easy target and a deserved target, that there's a lot of brilliant people who are elected officials who individually or collectively make some very dumb decisions. And we all witness those on a daily basis, and we shake our heads and we say, why are they doing that? It makes no sense. So we have this going through. I'd like to go back to what Dylan said about the stress level, because with all respect, Dylan, I think that's kind of a cop-out. I think, we all live under stress. I mean, every day, even people with very simple lives, if you will, people that just don't have a lot of things to worry about, don't have families to worry about, don't have a lot of different responsibilities. But even they today have this level of stress upon them. So I think that's true for everybody. I think educated people have stress. I think uneducated people, I think smart people, not so smart people, wealthy people, poor people. I think all of us feel the stress today. And I don't think that smarter people have any more stress than anybody else.
Well,
So
stress is an indicator that you are going in reverse.
Yeah.
Stress, see, if you take a piece of a stick, a iron piece of stick, and if you bend it by force, it is going to be under stress. And when it is under stress, you relieve it, it goes back to normal. And under normal condition, it has no stress. So whenever you are under stress, be assured that you are operating against your design. You are not supposed to have stress.
Now that would play into what Dylan said, though, is that if I, and I'm hypothetical here because I don't think I am that smart, but if I thought I was really smart and I know that I'm making decisions that go against my grain, go against my values, go against my beliefs, and yet I'm making these decisions for whatever reason, I could see how that would cause much more stress in me because I have the mental aptitude to be aware that this isn't what I should be deciding. This isn't what I should be leading others to do and making decisions for my company or my country or whatever it is. These are not right. And yet I kind of feel forced to do it a certain way. That would certainly cause stress
Yes.
at a very high level. And I'm smart enough to know it, and yet I still do it, you know? So I could see how that would be very intensive. Now, how do we, I guess, so the maybe the deeper question is why do we make those decisions that are against our grain? Why do we say drive the car in reverse when we know that's not designed to do it? Why do we make these choices?
Because nobody told us how we are designed, Ray. Nobody.
Yeah, but we feel it. We have the conscience inside of us. We've talked about a conscience. We have a moral
we are
compass.
going against it. See, all we have to do is look around the nature. And there is a wisdom, or what I call it, psychology of the creator, which is present within us and around us. If we comprehend that psychology, number one, nature has never duplicated anything. Even the leaves on the same tree are different. That is why each human being has different fingerprints. You have different eyes, you have a different way of doing things. So we are not equally designed, but we are equally designed uniquely. Every living being is a unique masterpiece. So that is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Once we realize that I cannot grow to my maximum potential by copying somebody else, I cannot walk on somebody else's footstep. I have to discover what I am supposed to do, what I am. So where my comfort level comes from, that is where your true success comes from. Once you operate within your operating design, you become very successful. But we in our society are guided by our parents or teachers and said, look, go become this, become an engineer, become a doctor. In India, that's why we are forced. And as because that's where we are going to make more money. We are not asked to find what our true passion is, what we are designed to do. That is number one. So until you explore that, you will remain mediocre. And as a consequence, you will have frustration, you will have stress. And second thing is, if you look around us, especially if you look a live thing without a brain, you look at your kidneys, you look at your liver, you look at your heart. they unconditionally, constantly work at their best. And your heart does not want to become a liver. Your liver does not want to become kidneys. But they are operating at their optimum level. So nature, all the fruit trees, have you ever seen an apple tree eat its own apple? They are all designed to produce successes, but not hold on to successes. Or stress comes from when we hold on to our successes. That is mine. The moment I call the success mine, I would have stress. Because all your successes are in spite of you, never because of you.
All right, you just opened a couple of doors there that we're going to talk about here at great length about doing what we're supposed to do. And again, with Dylan's examples of people that he knows in Silicon Valley, I wonder how many of the CEOs and decision makers really do feel that they're doing what they were meant to be and what they were meant to do. And I wonder if that's part of that core problem right from the beginning, that, you know, there used to be an old saying that you can't put a square peg into a round hole. And if you try to do that, it just doesn't work. As many times as you try, it doesn't work. And I wonder if that isn't causing the stress for some of these people. And therefore, I guess if they have that stress and they have that imbalance, they can't produce properly and they can't make the right decisions. And
let's hear from Dylan.
Well, let's hear from Dylan, but we're going to take a quick break. So when we come back, we're going to start with that first point that you made and see what Dylan thinks. And I also would like to have him respond to what I had said earlier regarding the level of stress that maybe he's had some time to think about it, the level of stress that the CEOs are under, if that really is the reason that they're having these problems. We are on Stress-Free Living, and we're trying to create less stress in our lives. And we're talking today about the smartest people sometimes doing the dumbest things. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, while we are on our commercial break, we have 2 minutes that we can open up the lines if any of our guests do want to say something. Dylan,
I have my cousin, Dr. Amrik Pable. Amrik Bhai Sahab, can you open unmute your button and have a conversation with us?
Like to share anything with us? We just have about 90 seconds. Maybe not. That's okay. Dylan, stand by. You're going to be live with us here for a minute on the show. Harmeet, we know that she's walking through the streets. We've seen some of that video. So I'm not sure if she's able to speak with us in the great outdoors. Looks like not. Okay. So if any of you are hearing us during these commercial breaks, so we have one more of these in about 20 minutes, that's when you can join us and ask questions or give us comments so we can explore. Otherwise, we ask you to stay muted. Thank you for doing that. And we will be going live here in just about a minute.
So Dylan, what do you have? What do you think?
Yeah, we're going to bring him in.
Great. I think I have a great example, actually.
You are a great example of what?
No, I have a great example.
Oh,
perfect. Okay, good.
So are we making any sense? Oh yeah, I love it. As Tanya was just in here, I said, this is great. Usually I'm doing this from the comforts of of our bedroom, and now I'm actually live here in Cleveland. This is great.
Cool. And participating and adding value to our show, which is
I'm so honored.
We're honored to have you.
Yeah, finally we got a smart guy.
And we're back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, and our special guest today, a California resident from the Silicon Valley area, known as one of the high-tech, high intelligence areas of the world where, if you're not familiar with it, for maybe some of our listeners who don't know much about that, that's where all of the big technology giants have launched many of their great businesses. And so a lot of really smart people in Silicon Valley, at least we think they are. They think they are for sure. And Dylan Desai is somebody from that area, so he has a lot of experience with smart people. Dylan, what do you think about what we've been talking about here? Do you think the idea that many of these people are doing what they were meant to be and what they were meant to do you think that has a factor in the stress levels and consequently doing dumb things?
I do. I absolutely do. And I was thinking as you were speaking about what kept on occurring to me is sort of what has become a little bit of the poster child of exactly what we're talking about here. And I don't know if the listeners have heard of this individual, but she's been on the news. And she started this company on the basis of using a single drop of your blood to determine what history or what genetic potential diseases you might have. And many of you may know her name. She's Elizabeth Holmes, and she started a company called Theranos. And she went to Stanford, highly educated, came from a middle to upper class family, I believe. And so came from a good background, was well raised, and again, went to one of the top universities in the world, if not, the country, certainly. And this is an individual, in reading through the news articles and some of the biographies, really felt that she had something that no one else did, and she was going to be the first to do it. And here she is years later, and all of the corruption, all of the things that happened to take down that company and take, essentially her and her partners down, were, in my opinion, and from what I read from it, caused by this intense need to prove themselves right, to prove herself to be someone that, someone that could do something no one else ever had, which is a lot of what comes out of highly educated people who come from Stanford or some of these top universities who want to be the first. They look at their peers, they look at the other folks who maybe even dropped out early in school, the Zuckerbergs of the world and others, and think, I want to be the first. I want to be the one that does something no one else has. And when I think about the term stress, that's an element of stress. That's an element of pressure on an individual who wants to be the best, who wants to come from, and certainly in the Silicon Valley, stand out from the rest of the already very smart people.
Well, you've added an element of ego there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we've talked in the past. Ego causes stress, no question about it, and I think it does distort our decision making too.
Well, yeah, but there is one thing we said. We don't know how we are designed. Means we are designed as a special, unique masterpiece. We don't discover that. And we are not grateful for that. Second thing is that we don't understand what we are designed to do. So in absence of that, we are designed to produce successes because of the uniqueness, but give it freely, unconditionally, adding the highest value. Once you remain in that mode and don't own anything which you have created, then you would not have stress. And third point is, Ray, that we completely miscalculated who we are. We are placed in this human body, but we are not the human body. We are the force which enlivens the human body. And that force is the same which exists in you and everybody else, unifying us into oneness. So it is just like in our own human body, if we found a brain chip and put a brain chip in the heart, put a brain chip in the liver, put the brain chip in the liver, in the kidney, put the brain chip in eyes, in all the limbs, we put a brain chip. Suddenly they'll think, gosh, I am a separate entity. And heart is going to say, gosh, I'm working non-stop 24 hours, and these other limbs sometimes take rest. So I'm going to go to sleep. The whole body is going to collapse. The whole body is going to die. So what has happened is the brain is given to us as a tool, but if brain is attached and guided by the human body, which forever is insecure, human body knows it is going to die, human body feels the pain, and the brain is always going to be guided by human body, which is sparked in what is in it for me, is sparked in greed, is sparked in fear, is sparked in ego. So all those things come to us because our brain is guided by human body. If the same brain is guided by the universal force present within us, then we are secure. That force does not die.
We'll come back to that, but you've had so many things to talk about, Ratanjit. I want to go back to the idea of being a unique masterpiece, because you've hit that a couple times today in the show. And that is such a beautiful thought. And I have shared that thought that you planted in me with thousands of people. When I speak, especially to younger people, I always share that idea that they are a unique masterpiece, a composite of everything that's happened in their life, of what came from them genetically when they were first conceived, and everything that happens in their lives makes them unique and a unique masterpiece. And it's just a beautiful, fulfilling thought.
Now, just before you go further, Ray, that thought, as unique, as powerful it is, if your brain is guided by your human body, that thought is going to give you ego.
That's exactly where I was going. Exactly. I was going to say that the people that Dylan's referring to that want to be the first and want to be the best and want to do all these kind of things, if they think they're a unique masterpiece, if they think that they have this, incredible capabilities that nobody else ever has had and nobody else ever will have, that just drives their ego to kind of be out of control. I mean, you could see how that could go in the wrong direction.
Yes. Yes. See, the second piece, if it is not missing, what you are designed to do. Okay, you are a unique masterpiece. What are you designed to do is to add value unconditionally.
But they think they're doing that. They do think they're adding value.
They're adding value for where it gives them profit. Look at the drug companies. They have so many drugs which can help humanity, but they don't market them because they don't make money at it.
Mm-hmm.
So they only market a drug where they can make money. So all our incentive is greed driven, insecurity driven, fear driven. All our marketing, see the marketing, look at, they are either appealing to your greed, this is better for you, this will make you look great, or if you don't take this, this is going to kill you. It reduces your pain. So they are everything in our society, everything is directed by our fear, greed, and insecurities. And that is why we are in this mess.
And the smartest people that are in the marketing world know that. And so
that's why the smartest people, the unique people, unique talent, they end up doing the wrong thing because they don't know what they are designed to do. And then they don't know who they are. They mistake themselves as a separate entity. We are unified by the enlivening force within us. If you take an electric bulb, Ray, and in this electric bulb, it is made differently by a different company. It has a different color, for a different configuration. When it is lit, they have a live wire connection to a single source of power, which is coming from the powerhouse. So when electric bulb is lit, it is alive at that time. So we differentiate electric bulb by its color, by its size, by its gender. But what enlivens the electric bulb is the same. So what enlivens entire humanity is the universal single power. And that's what we are here to serve. So I serve the divine power in others. That is where I get my highest gratification, reward, satisfaction. If you deprive yourself of that, you'll always be in stress and frustration.
The thing is, once we get, and I'd love to have Dylan's input on this one, once we get to a certain level of success, and or maybe even just a certain level of smartness, okay, like we have that MBA from Stanford, and we think that we're invincible, we think we can do anything. Our ego has gotten to such a level that I don't think we need to connect to anybody. We don't, at that point, heck with the powerhouse. We are a powerhouse, and we can do what we want to do. And are you saying that right there is the problem? I mean, as soon as we disconnect ourselves, we're going to make bad decisions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then what is guiding you is your human needs, human body. And that is always parked in fear. Always it knows that it's vulnerable, it's going to die. It has to be filled with fear. So that is why in the human body mode, you cannot, when we do good things, Ray, we all do great things. This society has $170 billion worth of volunteer work done every day. Not every day, the yearly. So we give out so much, but then I need a trophy and a medal for that. That's all coming from ego needs.
So how do we resolve it? How does somebody who has been so trained and experienced and educated and given a level of authority, and they're in a position to make such a difference in the world, but they're so possessed? How does Dylan talk to a friend that he has in Silicon Valley and present the idea that they've gone off track and that they need to connect? I mean, that seems like an impossible task. Dylan, I would like to ask you to, do you think your friends would be open to this kind of a revelation, or is their ego going to be too strong to be able to even accept the thought that they're out of control?
I think the irony of this past year, especially, has, to answer your question, yes, I think there's been somewhat of an awakening over the past year, whether it's the fact that people are working from home, the fact that there's more of a connection or need to connect with people because you're no longer in an office, you're no longer seeing as many people. So I actually think coming out of this last year, there's this irony of people wanting to connect, wanting to have more of a human interaction, which frankly, I think, certainly speaking for myself, took for granted in many ways over the last year. So I think there's much more of an openness now than there probably has been in many, many years.
But see, Ray, if you see
That's great news.
The result of this ladder which we have been climbing after achieving worldly success, fame, money, everything, a lot of us end up committing suicide. If not that, we have breakup of the loved one we have lived with so long. Look at the highest order. Bill Gates have just announced that they are divorcing. And the Amazon head of the guy, he was divorced. So if we don't even have enough in us to stay with the person who we once loved, what happened? People say, oh, we grow apart. It is all because of you are looking through a lens of what is in it for me. And if you are constantly looking from that lens, it is hard for you to satisfy that requirement. Because when you become millionaire, you want to become a billionaire. When you become a billionaire, you want to become the richest person, the trillionaire, and so on and so forth. The same thing goes for power. You cannot have enough power. You cannot have enough money because it's like eating fake food. If you are hungry and you have been given food which tastes like good food, smells like good food, but has no nutrition, your body is still starved. It wants more food. You keep on putting that food again and again, but it's never going to satisfy you because there is no real nutrition in that food. So this is how the entire human race has been living. It doesn't matter how well developed the country is, how much technology we have, how much money we have, how much education we have. You know, the highest educated in our country, many from Ivy League colleges, you know what the highest contribution is?
No.
To white collar crime. And that is what has happened. And US is the only country, by the way, our lawmakers have made corruption legalized. You cannot give money to an elected official, but you can give money to a person in between the elected official and you. They call it lobbyist. They can pursue an elected official to go in any direction. And they contribute money to their campaign.
And PACs, the political action committees, you can
Right.
give them
So this
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
this is corruption legalized. It's a cleverness of this mind. Mind is a very clever instrument, but it is attached to the wrong boss. If your body is guiding this brain, doesn't matter how smart, how genius you are not going to add the highest value. And at the end, not only the world is going to suffer, but you are going to be compromised.
Well, you said this earlier, but to restate it, because that's the area of marketing that I have the experience in. If we are people that are making decisions based on our greed and based on fear of missing out, not getting it, not having something, then the smartest marketing minds know that too. And so they are developing the most brilliant campaigns to tell us why we do need things we don't need,
Yes.
why we should vote for things that we shouldn't vote for, why we should make decisions that we shouldn't make. So it's just feeding already these parts of us that want to be greedy and want to and don't want to have the fear. And so, you know, it does kind of create a situation where, you know, doesn't seem to be a solution because, you know, we already want something and we're being told, yes, this is the way to get it.
Yes.
And all you have to do is buy this, go here, decide this, vote for this person, whatever it is, and they're telling us that's the right decision. So it's until you hear something like your thoughts here today, you don't even think that there is another solution. You really don't even think that there's another alternative. It's like the whole world is feeding into this frenzy. I take great satisfaction, Dylan, and when we come back from this next break, I really want to go there because maybe the pandemic and all the insanity from it, all the craziness of everything that's been happening globally because of it, and a lot of heartbreak too, maybe that is an opportunity for us to stop and be awakened by this new thought process, or I shouldn't say new thought process, but certainly the right thought process. So when we come back from the break, let's go there. Let's see if today can be the day that we start thinking and acting differently. This is Stress-Free Living. We are so glad you're with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so we'll have about 12 minutes, 11 or 12 minutes to talk further. Any of our guests, we have a number of guests there. This is your chance. We have about 90 seconds. If anybody would like to give us a quick comment or question, unmute yourself if you'd like to. All right. Ratanjit, I think that's a good place to go when we come back with, this has been such a disruption to our lives. There's no question about it. And Dylan's idea that we have been, our social lives have been so impacted, and we want connection. We want to reach out to people. Maybe, do you think this has created an opportunity to look inside of ourselves and realize who we really are, that we really need this, and that we shouldn't be driven by the greed and the ego?
Well, see, if your thinking is still done by the brain attached to the human body, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So what happens is when a I don't want to.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, save it for the show.
Okay.
Save it for the 11 minutes. Okay, we're still in the breaks. But we've got other visitors with us, but they're being quiet. Want to let them all know that if you want to stay with us right after the show is done in about 12 minutes, you're welcome to stay with us. We can talk online here together. We'll not be on the air, but we'll be together. So you can give us any comments and thoughts about the show. And we're back on Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Ratanjit and Ray and our special guest Dylan Desai from California, the Silicon Valley area, as we are continuing to talk about smart people and why some smart people, maybe including us, do some things that other people and maybe even we acknowledge as not being the smartest things, kind of dumb things. Why do smart people do some of the dumbest things? Before we took the break there, Dylan, we promised to talk about maybe this being a very monumental moment in history, because before the pandemic, admittedly, things were out of control. I mean, we had a world where we had so many time-saving capabilities, so many conveniences like never known to humanity, and yet nobody had any time. And everybody was so rushed that we couldn't even stop to think straight. I mean, we were all trying to balance our lives and our families and our jobs and our finances. And no matter who you talk to, can you get together? No, I'm too busy. Can we meet here? No, it was out of control.
Yeah.
And then we all went basically into hibernation, and we all sequestered ourselves into situations where now we have some time to think. Do you think this situation that we're coming out of finally after the pandemic, hopefully permanently now, is this a good time for people to shake themselves up and say there is a better way?
Absolutely. I think if not, it's a wasted opportunity. I think that in many ways, at least the folks that I talk to, family members, friends, colleagues, it's framed as a reset, hopefully, and taking stock of what's important to you, where you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, what you're even talking about. Folks in the professional world, careers, are we doing things that are true to our purpose, or are we simply doing things and spending time because we are trying to fuel or satisfy something that we were told to do? I think a lot of, at least again, speaking from a personal place of introspection, the last year has caused me and caused a lot of us to think about these things in ways that we didn't before, because we just, to your point, Ray, we didn't have the time. We thought we didn't have the time. We were too rushed. We were doing too many other important things that we thought were important at the time, but now looking back, seem fairly inconsequential.
So, go ahead, Ratanjit.
There's two things. One is that, Ray, in our life, sometimes we randomly come to an opportunity in a crowd or in a situation where we end up helping somebody, and that person we will never see again. And that little act stay in our mind and gives us a tremendous satisfaction internally. And so it's not the question of the good act which always are rewarded with the trophy and medal, which is our ego, but those acts which nobody notices other than you, it becomes your personal treasure. We know they are good for our soul. They are great experiences. See, the other side of this coin is we know that. But when there is difficulty, when it's like when you have a heart attack and you go to the doctor and you say, oh, it's a rude awakening, and I better change my diet, I change my living habits. Very few of us really end up doing that to the right extent. And then there is a third side, when you find somebody who is giving you that wisdom. We have had reincarnation of God or prophets or saints and all that. Instead of listening and following that path, we begin to worship them. We begin to create temples for them. We begin to create churches for them. And as a consequence, we do not follow what they are telling us to do. It's like I was visiting a friend, and their daughter was visiting at the same time, and the daughter has 1.5-year-old kid. And I was playing with that, and that kid was fascinated with my beard, and so I was trying to draw her attention away from that. So there was a full moon night. So I was pointing my finger to say, look at the moon, look at the moon. And the child was grabbing my finger instead of looking at the moon. We are doing exactly the same thing. We are holding on to the finger, means our prophets and our saints, we worship them, we declare them great, and we fight for them, but we never follow what they're telling us to do. So problem is not that. Problem is that ultimately we do not live our knowledge, Ray. We live our habits. And this human body has a habit of thinking in certain ways, living in certain ways. So just like if you have a habit of doing drugs, Your brain knows that you are doing it wrong, but you cannot control. You need a clinic to help you clean this. So you have to admit that you have this habit of thinking in the human body mode, in the ego mode, and you have to go on this really dedicated path of transforming yourself so that you begin to be guided by the divine force present within you rather than the human body guiding your brain.
I totally agree, but I think the problem is that a lot of people don't make that decision that they are willing to make that kind of a change in their life. And you mentioned the person that has a heart attack. If the doctor comes to me and says, if you don't change your ways, you're going to die, then that's a pretty strong statement. And even in that case,
A lot of people don't change.
that don't change, okay? Somebody that's been a smoker all their life and they say, if you keep smoking, you're going to die, and they keep smoking.
Yes.
Okay. So even when you're faced with something like that, that is the ultimate end of life. I mean, it doesn't get stronger of a point than that. So why would we think that some people are going to reassess their lives and start thinking that I'm here about adding the highest value and connecting to the universe? What is the motivation to make that change, especially if they're a smart person that has still been reasonably successful? Now, you mentioned a few people like Bill Gates this week that announced his divorce. I mean, that's a life-changing event, especially somebody as prominent. I mean, I can only imagine, kind of the stress that's caused him at that level of prominence, when it's always, husband and wife and their foundation and everything, and to announce that they don't get along anymore and getting divorced. But even there, they did it. I mean, they still went through with it, even though there was, tremendous shame or embarrassment or whatever that might be associated with it. So what does it take for us to want to really change?
Well, see, that is where unfortunately, it has to begin as a child. It has to be,
Yeah.
we have to transfer a human being right from the beginning to put them on the right path. Our education system is the biggest sin in our society, because that prepares us for greed, that prepares us for revenge. They make us competitive rather than cooperative, which is against our basic design. So regardless of which institution you go to, this whole thing is designed to make money. And look at the endowment of some of these institutions in 40 billion, 30 billion dollars. And they are educational institutions, but they have become temple of finance, money. So everything is driven by money and greed. Money is basically means greed. And this is not going to give us sanity. We are basically a sick society. After spending $3.8 trillion on healthcare, do you know the US is the sickest country in the world?
I believe it. Ratanjit, that's a heck of a note to take this out on. I think what we've done is just open the door to a bigger and more in-depth discussion. And we've made a lot of points. You've made a lot of great points here today. And Dylan Desai, our special guest, has really helped us to communicate a lot of thoughts on this. But I think this is definitely a part one and at least part two program here. So let's continue this thought next week, especially with the idea of can this be a reset right now? How do we get through to people? I agree, starting with youth is the way to do it, because before the bad habits come. But how can we change the habits
But then we have to recruit them into a school so that we can give them the facts, we give them the new habits.
All right. Let's look to try to do this. We'll start the school here on Saturday mornings. Dylan Desai, thank you for your help. We appreciate your support here today and your good comments. Ratanjit, as always, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your love with all of us. And to our listeners, thank you so much for being with us. As always, we appreciate you being here. Remember, folks, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.